People, deluded, I'm back again as we draw to an end of the Premier League season, with our last game being against Everton, or for some Arsenal fans who were twerking for Spurs, we played yesterday actually. Well, some of you played yesterday where Spurs lost to Manchester City. You know, we mock Spurs about being bottlers and serial bottlers, and you lot put your trust in them. Fair enough. I understand the rhetoric and the logic, but why you would do that, I don't know. I made videos trying to show you lot why you shouldn't sell your soul. And although it is difficult to beat Manchester City, and once again, logically, obviously, them dropping points helps us out. We need to control the variables that we can control. Now, we can't go back in time. So, to some degree, talking about Newcastle, about West Ham, about the 2 games against Fulham or Aston Villa, and any other points Arsenal have dropped points. Ironically, the first North London derby and the first game at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea, it's been all gone. We have to go back in time when the season's done and see the fine margins that, you know, in many ways we're getting close to City. But as you know, City, where some people have said they're at their worst, are still yards above everyone. And similar to last season, there's no shame in losing out on a Premier League trophy to City. And again, I know we can't win every game, but the game, you know, if we just picked up 3 more points, look at the position we'd be in. That's neither here nor there. Big up you lot for being tuned in. As we draw to the end of the Premier League season, transfer news, rumours, opinions, all of these things are starting to circulate. Now, 99.9% of them are probably BS. Nonetheless, it makes for great talking points. Firstly, just before I went online, actually, people, and this is why you should always have lunch, because if I never had lunch, I would have missed out this article. Benjamin Sesko, a player who I'm very fond of, and he's a 20-year-old able to play out wide, works the channels well, good general play, in a rich run of form. Again, very much in the elementary stage of his career, very raw in certain regards, but in his early 20s, there's a lot of upside. In my opinion, and a player Arsenal have been linked with consistently for the last few months. And again, today, Arsenal plot move for RB Leipzig striker Benjamin Sesko. And Gyökeres has actually been linked with Arsenal and been linked with Man United as well, people. The Slovenia attacker could cost in excess of £60 million. His value is boosted by recent form of the RB Leipzig in the Bundesliga. Now, again, he has a release clause. We've since found out, check out the other videos, that there's certain things in his contract that makes the release clause go up. But at 60 million, an early 20-year-old, it isn't the most money required where you look at, and I'm not saying Isak is a better or worse option, but Isak's costing 80 to 100 odd million. Gyökeres has a release clause, which is a lot, and Sporting are going to make it hard to prize him. You know, Osimhen is costing over 100 million euros. Arsenal might say, do you know what? Sesko allows us to invest in other areas, be that bring in, regardless, you know, if you signed Isak or Osimhen, you probably should be bringing in a wide man, but maybe 60 million, you know, that extra 40 million, you know, from not spending 100 million on someone could be put towards a winger. Clearly, we need to address central midfield. I think, you know, we need a striker that's going to really put competition on Kai Havertz's form and give us a different option. A winger that can ease the burden on Martinelli and put a lot of pressure on Martinelli and obviously Trossard and indirectly Saka. A blockbusting changer in central midfield, because although I like Kai Havertz playing up front, the central mid experiment for this season did not work, and we need to get that left-hand side going a bit like how it was last season. We haven't got a left-sided 8. Obviously, we've had mixed form with some of our wingers, mainly the main one, Martinelli, and there's been inconsistencies in the availability of who's been at left-back. So I think that would be the 3 game-changing sort of players for our starting 11. Indirectly, you have a stronger squad. I'm not saying to drop Kai Havertz. I hope this form continues. He's backed up his manager by putting in the work, and it's lovely. But, you know, if you've got Kai Havertz continuing this, you've got a striker. Only one of them, there's other possibilities, but only one of them can start. One of them's on the bench. That's a stronger bench. Between Trossard, Martinelli, and probably not Saka, but Saka as well, you get another winger that's genuinely putting pressure and ideally able to play on both sides. Somebody is on the bench. A central midfielder, somebody who's starting or has played the games this season, is on the bench. So we indirectly get a stronger squad. Then it's obviously about probably finding a backup goalie. I do think we could do with a versatile defender or a couple of defensive recruitments in terms of depth. So yeah, people, I'm a big fan of Sesko. Sam Dean has said Arsenal have a strong interest in RB Leipzig striker Benjamin Sesko and are considering a move for the Slovenian international in this summer's transfer window. The Telegraph Sports understands that rival suitors believe Arsenal are now in pole position to sign the 20-year-old should the North London side choose to formalise their interest. One of Arsenal's top summer priorities is to strengthen their front line, and Sesko, a 6'5" central forward, which obviously you've seen in the last 18 months to 3 years, we've added a lot of height in our team. He would follow suit in that regard, would add a different option to Mikel Arteta's attack. He previously spent 4 years at Salzburg before joining Leipzig in 2023. He was regarded as a teenage prodigy in his early part of his career. And has scored 13 goals in 30 Bundesliga appearances this season. He's enjoyed an impressive run of form in recent weeks, scoring in each of his past 6 games. On the international stage, he has 11 goals in 28 appearances for Sevilla. Now, I should have done my research. I'm pretty sure Sevilla are in the Euros. I could be wrong, but that could be a platform for him to attract more interest. According to German reports, Sesko's release clause previously stood at about 43 million. However, Sky Germany reported earlier this month that the clause has increased as a result of his excellent performances and now could cost as high as 64 million. Sesko, who turns 21 at the end of this month, would represent a long-term addition for Arsenal with potential to improve and grow at the squad. The successful deployment of Kai Havertz and a striker in the second half of the season has lessened the club's need to recruit a ready-made experienced forward, but we do need a striker in some capacity, or let's say reinforcements. His agent was spotted at the Arsenal versus Manchester United game. Both clubs have been linked with him. He's been aggressively linked with AC Milan, and you can't rule Chelsea out as well. I didn't even look at that part of the article, people. That's how you know I do my homework, but it said such there, people. He also said it'd be nice to play in the Premier League as well once upon a time. Apparently, we're still monitoring Bologna forward Joshua Zirkzee, who they've qualified for the Champions League. I don't know if he's going to want to leave at this moment in time. I guess it all depends on Thiago Motta. Victor Gyökeres is another player we've been linked with, and obviously he played coy on his future during Sporting Lisbon's trophy lifting, and when they're on the open bus and enjoying life. We all know we're going to have to, offset the spending that we probably can make with some sales in the likes of Aaron Ramsdale, Eddie Nketiah, Emil Smith-Rowe, Tierney Tavares, Lokonga, as well as Reece Nelson's future is subject to speculation. And it still says we're huge admirers of Jarell Hato of Ajax, who, if it's up to me, you get that done and you bring him in tomorrow, people. We all know, at least for the summer, we've spent, 27 million. We've given 3 million to Brentford already. We owe them 27 million when, not if, David Raya's move is made permanent. So at this moment in time, we've technically already bought a player. And ironically, you could make a case of we need to sign 2 goalies. I hope Ramsdale stays because you're going to make the Euros. Obviously, I think the summer of 2025-26, you'd probably need to move on because you've got the World Cup at the end of that campaign. But I hope Ramsdale stays just so we don't have to do this. But for Ramsdale's sake, while it could be difficult, probably need to keep it moving. Again, people, we've been linked with João Neves of Benfica, 19-year-old. I love his technical ability. But if there's, away from the obvious you would expect of a Portuguese central midfielder, which we've covered him before, I might actually do a video on him. One of the analytical ones. Check out the other videos I've done in that regard. It's the mentality. Like, I think he displays leadership qualities of, someone way mature than a 19-year-old. He's going to cost a lot of money. He's got a lot of clubs interested in him. The price tags go as high as 100 million. But apparently Graham Bailey has said Arsenal have added the 19-year-old Benfica midfielder to their list of midfield options and have intensified their scouting of him in recent weeks. A follow-up tweet or a follow-up comment from Graham Bailey says Martin Zubimendi remains Arsenal's top choice, and the club are busy trying to work on a deal with Mikel Arteta himself, working hard to persuade the player to make the move. However, Arsenal are also doing their due diligence on other targets if Zubimendi proves unattainable. Been linked with a bunch of clubs. His managers, while you can't just take managers' words for gospel, has kind of played down stuff. But I mean, if you was to get, Martin Zubimendi on the cheap and Sesko, I think, that is probably about just shy of 100 million, really, because I think Zubimendi's release clause is about 50 odd million. They're saying as high as 64 million for Sesko. And I think those are 2 players that, immediately improve our starting 11. Where the other players are concerned, the João Neves is, the Bruno Guimaraes, which we're going to get onto. They're going to cost a lot of money. Now, if you pay peanuts for players, then you get monkeys. And I'm being very careful on that. So I do think, while if we can scout players that are lesser known, and if you can find a player that could do a job and to a suitable standard and be as amazing at 20 million as 100, I hear it, do it, really. And half of these players that we're linked with, there was times Arsenal could have signed them before, and I always say everyone's got to start somewhere. Half of these players had to start somewhere, really. So due diligence and scouting could obviously help. But if we're not always going to do that, because every player, isn't hidden under a rock, really, in this day and age, you probably just got to spend the money. I'm not saying we're going to have, like an 11 of players that cost 100 million. But you know, where Declan Rice is concerned, you get what you pay for a top quality player. You know, Kai Havertz, it took a while, but the 65 million looks well spent based on what he's adding to the squad. Would love to wake up and he looks like Ballack or Schweinsteiger in central midfield, and we've got a multifunctional player, because I think the false nine is the thing for him. Fabrizio Romano has said another name to watch at Arsenal is Reece Nelson. It's a possibility that he could leave the club. There was interest in Nelson last summer, but he ended up signing a new contract. Him and Ramsdale signed new deals, which helps our negotiating hand. Still, he will now consider proposals in the summer, and Arsenal too. They're not desperate to part ways, only in the case there's a good proposal in the summer transfer window. So I guess Nelson's happy at Arsenal. You know, he gets in the squad every now and again. Since players have become fit, hasn't quite been the case. For Nelson, you know, you see price tags as high as 30 odd million quid. If you was buying Reece Nelson, I'm not saying he's not worth it. He was once spoken about as the next big thing of Haaland, which is why it's dangerous. 30 million could be well spent, but if you're buying him, surely you're trying to do it for 15. And I think where Reece Nelson's concerned, it takes two things for him to move on. For him to really sit there and say, you know what, Arsenal's been a big part of my life. I've been here since a child, teenager, young man, full grown adult. I've developed probably off the field as well as here. We're doing great things. The manager does like me. I have got a role here, but am I destined to play one game am I destined to start? Am I destined to get 5 starts, 10 starts? How much am I going to develop? You've seen a couple of your teammates, you know, and fellow Highlanders get England call-ups and play more on a regular basis. And he's seen his, you know, his boy, like, for instance, Joe Willock or Jay Da Silva. They've moved in, or Iwobi. They've gone to other Premier League clubs and they're cutting futures out for themselves, really. You don't want to get left behind. Minutes are currency. And for Nelson to fulfill his potential, I do believe the same with Nketiah. You probably need to go and play on a regular basis, really and truly. Romano has also said Gabriel Jesus has been mentioned as a target, but at the moment he's not talking to any Saudi clubs. They've actually the latest players to be linked are Varane, Casemiro, and Bruno Fernandes to Saudi. There are no proper negotiations ongoing. It's just about interest. It's the same for Thomas Partey. He was a target for Saudi last summer, but he's not in contact with them at the moment. Romano has also said Arsenal will be busy. I think it's going to be an exciting summer. Arsenal will be there because they need a player in the defensive positions, probably left back, then a midfielder. I see Arsenal signing an important midfielder in this summer transfer window. For example, Zubimendi is a player they like. The advantage for Arsenal is they already have the manager with an important project, so they know the players they like, and Zubimendi is one of them. Onana at Everton is one of them. Also, Douglas Luiz from Aston Villa. They are some of the players that they really appreciate. You'd imagine Aston Villa in the process of attempting to get Douglas Luiz to sign a new contract, and obviously they just qualified for the Champions League, so I don't think players would be itching to leave, really. They will sign a striker. Big up Ollie Watkins, because, you know, off topic people, but when Manchester City defeated Spurs, obviously that confirmed Aston Villa would be in the Champions League. And I think they were having their award show or whatever. I assume the Arsenal game, well, I say the Arsenal game, you know, a game with ramifications for Arsenal with Spurs and City was on, and he looked like a boyhood Arsenal fan. He looked vexed. Maybe the camera just caught him. They will sign a striker. Let's see if they prefer to invest on a winger or a central forward. I think Gyökeres from Sporting Lisbon is a player they really like. So a lot of journalists are saying different conflating things at this moment in time. Ben Jacobs has said Newcastle don't want to lose Bruno Guimaraes, but it's understood offers exceeding 80 million could be entertained should Guimaraes wish to leave for a Champions League club. It's also true that both Man City and Arsenal made contact with his camp. So maybe the message got aired. Maybe there's been genuine conversations to see if there's feasibility. Me personally, I've said I think him and Paqueta end up at Man City. I think considering the treble that City did last season and how it's ended now, which is still kind of great, I just think they need some new blood, and I think they will make some blockbuster kind of signings, if I'm honest with you. You know, Guardiola was finding his feet. Doku is getting minutes here and there, but I would say hardly any of their summer signings are setting the world alight for the whole season. And then, you know, Matheus Nunes is struggling at the moment. Kovacic has also found his feet. I do think City are due to sign some blockbusters. Arsenal appreciate Guimaraes, but have no intention to trigger his 100 million release clause, meaning they would only enter the race if the price drops. And you would imagine just because Manchester City definitely have the resources to activate his release clause, they might, but from a business point of view, you probably want to negotiate a bit and see if that price could drop. People offers exceeding 80 million could be entertained, so you never know, man. You know, if you I don't know. Like they like Smith Rowe allegedly. They like Ramsdale. Could they be used as make weights? Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe. Keeping up the theme with Newcastle players and actually a position Arsenal need to improve, which is a striker. My understanding remains that Alexander Isak is not for sale. Although Arsenal appreciate the Swede, they also are well aware of Newcastle's stance. Even though it's true the club need 30 to 50 million to ease any PSR concerns, Isak is not a name they plan to sacrifice. I reckon between Isak and Guimaraes, they don't want to lose either, but they'll probably rather lose Guimaraes. And to be fair with you, it's easier said than done, but I'm sure there's certain other players in and around the Newcastle side that they will look to be sold, that they'll look to move on or look to sell before they, you know, try to move those players on. So we'll have to see, people. 5 options for Arsenal in the summer transfer window. What is this? Frankie de Jong, let me know your thoughts on him. He's going to cost a lot of money and has some injury concerns. But in terms of his ability and maybe Barcelona's lack of financial muscle, that could be someone. And he once said, you know, he thought his career would be going to Arsenal and then Barcelona. We've been linked to Zubimendi for a few years now. We've gone over Bruno Guimaraes. We know there's an appreciation for Onana. Locatelli was one that we was once linked with. And a bit like Vlahovic, we got burnt. So I think we could leave that one. What about Atalanta's Cooper Miners? Arsenal and Bayern Munich join Barcelona in the race to sign Xavi Simons, people. The 21-year-old is currently on loan at Leipzig from PSG. Imagine not wanting to integrate him into the first team. He has also been linked with City. If Arsenal could get this man who has 9 goals and 13 assists in all comps, you know, following on his strong spell at PSV and now doing his thing at Leipzig, if PSG want to move him on, let's get this done, really and truly, man. He's going to cost a lot. PSG want more than 60 million, in brackets 52, if they are to part ways with the winger, a fee that Barca may be unable to match. Arsenal, however, could look to sign Simmons as they seek to bring in more goal scoring prowess at the Emirates. I mean, he can play as a 10, technically as an 8, and actually off the left, but I reckon he'd want to play off the right, which obviously you've got Saka. So you can never say never. Would love it to happen. Think it's a great addition, but yeah, I just think if the club are more like, I think the club are more likely to spend significantly in a striking player or someone that can cover those positions and a central midfielder, which Xavi Simons can play. You know, big up Postecoglou. He's the only man connected to Spurs that's not a loser. I'm sure you've all seen the videos where he's shouting at one of the fans, probably an Arsenal fan pretending to be a Spurs fan. Jeremy Frimpong rumours won't go away. Real Madrid, Manchester United and Arsenal eye bargain move for the Bayern Leverkusen star. And on top of him just being a good right back and him doing great things, and I'm sure Xhaka would give him a glowing character reference. Don't think he's the best defensively, but going forward, he could give us something. Technically, I know he plays for Holland and he's been at Celtic and Leipzig, but he came through at Man City, so he's homegrown. So if you're going to lose Eddie Nketiah, Ramsdale, Smith Rowe, and Nelson and all of these guys, we need homegrown players or players that count to that ilk. So yeah, people, both Manchester clubs, Real Madrid as well as Arsenal, have all been name dropped as being interested in the 23-year-old attacking right back. We've also once again been linked with João Cancelo, people. That's probably a lot of nonsense, as Barcelona probably tried to be a bit cute and clever and negotiate either significantly reduced terms to what was agreed with Man City or engineer another loan move for, you know, the technically still Man City player, but current loanee at Barcelona. I mean, in terms of being an inverted fullback, he can't really defend to the greatest standard, as seen in the champs, for the penalty he gave away. But he fits what Arteta is wanting to do, and I wouldn't be against it. But I just think that is paper talk. Big up Arsenal ladies. There's another departure. Arsenal women goalkeeper Sabrina D'Angelo will leave the club upon the expiry of her contract. We need to bring in some players for our women's team because we're losing Miedema, and you know, I need to see Arsenal playing on TV and Miedema at her new club. She's actually been linked with City, because I'm not saying anything, people, and it's just a joke, but have you ever seen Odegaard and Miedema in the same place? Let me know. There's a bit of a conspiracy theory going on there. We was once linked with Celta Vigo's Gabby Vega, who obviously departed Spain for Saudi Arabia, and 21 years of age, getting a lot of money, securing his family's future for generations. Probably does want to come back to, you know, Europe, really, and apparently Aston Villa are keen to sign him. So I wonder how long before he's linked with Arsenal. And they're trying to get Carlos Soler, so the Spaniard Emre is trying to bolster his squad. And to be fair, Aston Villa got a good team. They probably need to get a good squad, because we saw with Newcastle, you know, on top of the challenges in the Premier League, the more games in the fixture calendar list, it could come back to bite them. But Emre could get these players. They're in the champs. Aston Villa, in my opinion, spent their Grealish money well, and they've coped really with life post Jack Grealish, really. So yeah, man, I expect us to be linked with him as well. We've gone over that with Fabrizio Romano. PSG would not accept a loan offer for Xavi Simons, making his signing impossible for Barcelona if they want to sell him for a high fee this summer. fair play. Arsenal are ready to accept offers on several fringe players. We've been knowing that, people. And again, we're still being linked with Bruno Guimaraes, as the futures of Partey and a few of our players are still subject to speculation. So let me know your thoughts on potentially signing Guimaraes, what you make of Zubimendi and Onana and Douglas Luiz. Which player would you prefer? Do you want Isaac? Do you believe in Sesko? Would you want Gyökeres? Let me know your thoughts on everything Arsenal and everything we've discussed, people. Also, how do we get stronger in terms of winning the Premier League trophy? I'm sure throughout the course of this video that's come out, people, you would have seen hyperlinks to other content. So make sure you're supporting, smash the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, boost the algorithm, check out the rest of the content. But most importantly, stay safe, stay blessed. Peace.
As always,